Welcome everyone to Monday Match Analysis. I'm Gill Gross. Busy week on the ATP Tour last week and a busy show coming up for you. I'm going to hit on a lot of things. Main topic is going to be the end of a drought. Felix Auger-Aliassime is a champion on the ATP Tour. 9th time is the charm. He defeated Stefanos Tsitsipas in the final in Rotterdam. That was the ATP 500 this week on indoor hard. Also, Buenos, another title for Casper Ruud. I'm going to hit on that. Big week for Reilly Opelka. He wins the inaugural Dallas Open. There's also some news when it comes to coaching. Stefanos Tsitsipas brought on Thomas Enqvist this week. Jannik Sinner has parted ways with Ricardo Piatti, his childhood coach from the age of 13. I'm going to get into that, what my thoughts are there. Jiri Lehecka, young Czech player, 20 years old, qualified, first ever ATP main draw, ATP sanctioned. He made his real debut at the Australian Open a couple weeks back. Huge week for him. Whoa. I'm going to talk about what I saw with that. But to start, it's got to be Delpo. It's Delpo's week. It was Delpo's week. I know I'm pretty late on this news, and it happened at the beginning of last week, and I could have made a video, but I was busy. One of the great tragedies of the last decade plus of tennis is that we didn't get Del Potro healthy. There's no way around it. He would have been in there. He would have been a contender. We were robbed of countless epic matches because Del Potro was so rarely at his best because his body wouldn't cooperate. And the history books would look a little bit different. We would, again, have a lot of a richer memory bank in the last decade plus if he were around. So a great tragedy, but also the impact that he had when he was on the court, when he was playing, when he was healthy, was remarkable. That impact hits home for me because the first ever match that I saw in person, I've shared this on Twitter, I've shared this on 3, was the 2009 U.S. Open final between him and Federer. And I didn't watch that much tennis on TV at that point in time. That match was inspiring to me. That match made me a bigger fan. That match helped me fall in love with the sport. And the emotion, first of all, that was on display on Del Potro's side, seeing how much it meant to him. He was in ruins after losing the third set, won the fourth, won the fifth, and it was a beautiful reaction to winning that major. And so special that he shared the moment with a lot of Argentinians in the crowd as well. And that was cool. But the forehands I still remember. I mean, I still remember those running forehands with, off of, Federer would go inside in or hit a backhand down the line, and Del Potro would be on the run 8 feet behind the baseline and would hit an absolute flat bomb, over 100 miles per hour, clean winner, cross court, on the dead run, flat as a pancake, boom. And the sound reverberated through Arthur Ashe, and it was electrifying. That shot, that forehand was electrifying. So, bearing witness to those things as a young fan, that was really special to me. I'm always indebted to Del Potro for helping me fall in love with this game. He touched a lot of people that way, I'm sure. I'm not alone. So, gracias, Delpo. Gracias. Jiri Lehecka. So, at the Aussie, he qualified and played Grigor Dimitrov in the first round, took a set off of him. Rotterdam, he qualifies again. And this is a guy who was outside of the top 200 at the start of 2021. Completely meteoric rise up the ranks. 2 challenger titles last year, a couple of other finals, lower level ITF titles as well. He's been killing it on the lower levels. Now he arrives on the big stage, and he's 20 years old. It's not rare to see someone make a slow transition from the challengers to the pros. This was not that. Lehecka qualifies. He beats Mute in qualifying. He beats Denis Shapovalov in his first career match. Look, Denis has this weird habit after a good result or after a major to suffer a really bad loss. It was actually another Czech beat Kopriva after Wimbledon. Shapovalov lost to first round. I don't know what's up with that. That aside, he beats Denis, and that's an awesome story in itself. Next round, he has Botic van de Zandschulp, right outside the top 50. He's probably not going to follow up the biggest win of his life with a win over someone who's, first of all, extremely motivated in their home country, BVDZ. Lehecka beats him. Now he plays Lorenzo Musetti. Big moment for both. Tense, lots of nerves, and Lehecka, end of the third set, shows a ton of toughness, great physicality, a lot of heart, and nerve management, and wins 7-5 in the third. Makes the semifinal, loses to Tsitsipas in 3. So, unbelievable run. What stood out to me about his game, there's definitely a purity to his ball striking. He hits really clean. The power comes pretty easily to him. He trades with a lot of pace, very comfortably, very consistently. The evenness between his forehand and his backhand definitely stand out. You're really not finding a lot of safety by going to his backhand, and he can build and he can apply pressure with his backhand as well as his forehand. So you think of him as a very even player. He's got good shot tolerance as well, and he's got a lot of heart. I didn't see a lot of repertoire. He doesn't have any massive holes. He had volleys. He showed off volleys. His athleticism wasn't eye-popping. But it was pretty good. It was fine. His serve, technically, I didn't love it. It had some effectiveness, I would say. But really, the ball striking, very pure. Very, very good off both wings. So, I'm going to keep it at that. I know surface level, but those were my initial scout on Jiri Lehecka. I want to talk about coaching. Beginning of the week, Stefanos Tsitsipas brought in a new coach, and it's Thomas Enqvist, the former world number 4 Australian Open finalist, the Swede. Look, I'm never going to have a lot, much of an opinion on the coaches themselves because there's not enough access for anyone to form those kinds of opinions. But as far as Steph bringing in someone new, it's time. It was time. It's time for some new technical advice. There are too many parts of his game that have been lackluster in the technical department for too long. And he needs someone to take a hard look at how he defends his backhand, how he returns his backhand, how he slices his backhand. I think he could use someone to look at the serve and see, is there a way that we can get 5 to 10% more out of that? It's time for some people to look at some things technically and for some new voices to come in that department. It's time for someone with tour experience in his camp. Little things like scheduling, managing the emotions week in, week out, travel, tour stuff. Apostolos, he wasn't a tour professional. I think that's a good thing to have someone who can give you some new ideas and some new perspectives in that area. It's definitely time for less distraction. I just don't think it's helped that there's been somewhat of a circus around Tsitsipas on a regular basis for the last 6 months. That can't help. Distractions aren't good. They're generally bad. And it's time for that to end. And I do wonder if there's someone else in there who is technically in charge. Is that going to reel in a lot of the antics that we see from Apostolos? I think it could. Lastly, just to have something beyond that father-son dynamic. And from what I've observed from their interactions, it's to me, they have a bit of a father-son thing going on where Steph can be a little bit dismissive. He can be a little bit disrespectful. Not that I've never seen that from pairings, professional pairings where it's not family. But I feel like that comes from a certain level of comfort. And I don't blame Stefanos, and I'm not attacking his character. I really don't want it to be interpreted like that at all. The same thing happens with me and my parents, is I'm going to say things to my parents that I would not be comfortable saying to my boss. I know that differs maybe culture to culture, but that's what I've observed from Stefanos and Apostolos, and I think it might be good for a professional to come in to bring a new sense of responsibility and professionalism to Tsitsipas' camp and to change that dynamic, to change that coach-player dynamic. Because I don't think when it's father-son, that changes the way things work. Really happy to see Stefanos bring in someone else new. That's it. Jannik Sinner has reportedly done the same thing, only it's a little bit different because Apostolos is still going to be in the mix. I do want to make that clear. In the case of Jannik Sinner, he's parting ways with Ricardo Piatti, who took Jannik under his wing at 13 years of age, built his game, is undoubtedly the architect of his game. There have been some candidates floating around for Jannik, Magnus Norman being one, Boris Becker being another. I don't have much to say about those guys. They both seem like solid choices. Magnus Norman especially, very experienced coach on the tour who's done awesome things with his players. But as far as breaking up with Piatti goes, and I'll admit that I'm usually pro-player when it comes to these kinds of decisions. I generally give them the benefit of the doubt. Sure, Piatti is the architect of his game, but the house is built now. It's time for that house to be maintained. It's time for it to be incrementally improved. And reportedly, the complaints that Jannik has is that Ricardo just isn't the traveling coach he needs that is going to give him that 24/7 attention, that maybe that match in and match out scouting, the time to travel and work on the training court together. Piatti's got an academy, and sometimes that dynamic can be a strained one between a head coach and their kind of star pupil and the academy. And it seems like that's what's at play here. But the one thing that I'll say is by no means should Jannik have any sort of loyalty, because you got to, first of all, the past is the past. You need to evaluate what is best for the future. And the process of building Jannik Sinner's game is completely different from the process of touring and maintaining and improving. Building the house is just not the same thing as what it takes to maintain and improve that set of skills. So I give Jannik the full benefit of the doubt there, and I want to throw that out there. Another clay court, 250 for Ruud, champion in Buenos Aires. Great final with Diego Schwartzman. Really good stuff there. Ruud with a 6-1 start to the year. I thought he looked good at the ATP Cup, and I was so disappointed to see him injure his ankle right before the Australian Open, because at this point, when it comes to Casper Ruud, it's time for him to make a run in a major. That's kind of what's missing here. He's proven himself, for the most part, in every other area. Made the semifinal at the ATP Finals, has made many, many Masters 1000 semifinals. Certainly has the 250 titles. I don't think he has a title above the 250 level, so that's definitely an accomplishment that he needs to bag at some point. But he's won 22 of his last 23 clay court matches. 4 titles, the post-Wimbledon hat trick. It was like Gstaad, and Kitzbühel. Now he's won Buenos Aires. Only clay court loss in his last 23 was Alejandro Davidovich Fokina, round 3 at the French. Head got in the way, nerves got in the way there. He was the better player. He shouldn't have lost that match. That was all nerve management. He got too nervous and he couldn't play his game. That's what happened in that match. Period. So you're kind of in a weird spot with Ruud. What are your takeaways here? Because he keeps winning these 250s, and it's kind of like, all right, we get it. We get it. You're not going to lose on clay to someone who's not in the top 10 and not Diego Schwartzman. We get it. He's just not going to lose. So where do we go from here? How are we making that next step? Well, we know what that looks like from a result standpoint. Go deeper in bigger tournaments. Make a run in a major. Go past round 3 in a major. Go from, he's made semifinals in Monte Carlo and Madrid and yeah, I don't know. Did he make it in any others on the clay? I think he might have. Win those big matches in the semifinals against the elite players. Win one of those titles. There's plenty more to kind of accomplish for Casper Ruud. But what does that process look like? And don't take this, I'm not going to criticize him here, but at some point you have to question why he played Buenos Aires last week. Why not Rotterdam? Why wasn't he in Rotterdam? There are other things at play that maybe I don't and can't talk about, such as appearance fees, but let's ignore that. Throw that aside, talk about tennis. Look at the top 15. Tsitsipas played Rotterdam. Rublev played Rotterdam. Felix played Rotterdam. Hurkacz played Rotterdam. Shapo played Rotterdam. Norrie played Rotterdam. The only guy in the top 15 who played Buenos Aires is Schwartzman. Tournaments in Argentina. You understand that. At a certain point, challenge yourself. Play the 500, more points, more prize money, better players. Work on the stuff that you need to work on. Challenge yourself. Develop. Might have been better to play Rotterdam. Now, again, he's still at a point in his career. Wildly impressive what he's doing. He's elite on clay. You can't take anything away from him. You can't. But if the pattern continues where he's winning the clay 250s, not taking the next step, winning the clay 250s, not taking the next step, at a certain point, you got to look at the decisions he's making. Maybe it's time to use those extra weeks to play the tournaments where he's going to be more uncomfortable. That's a possibility. Lorenzo Musetti played Rotterdam. And he was asked why last week, and he said, because I wanted to work on my worst surface, indoors. It's a slow indoor hard court. Musetti wasn't completely out of his element, but I was impressed with that. That impressed me. So I'm not criticizing Ruud. I'm really not. But if he played Rotterdam, I'd be praising him. I would like that better. I would like it better. Indian Wells, Miami, they feel important to him. Those are slower hard courts. The conditions should suit him. We see players who do well on clay. They do well on Indian Wells. So I'm very intrigued to see what he does there. Lastly, before we get to the Rotterdam final, big week for Opelka. Brooksby in another final as well. Great to see Brooksby back out there. What a show he is. I'm a big fan. Whether you love him or you hate him, I'm a big fan about the fact that he really does bring something different to the table. The way he competes, it's a college tennis kind of attitude that I appreciate. For Opelka, I'm not going to go long on him. I just want to see him go a month without a bad loss. It's kind of a similar situation to Ruud. I know he's capable of this. I think he's top 20 material. And he's back in the top 20 now. He can go farther. He can reach higher. It's a week-to-week focus thing with him. I just want to see him go a month without a bad loss. The fact that he wins the title here, it's reassuring, but I feel like I don't really learn anything about Reilly Opelka because you knew he could do this. You knew he had this in him. What I'm not sure about is, can you go through the calendar without the dramatic ups and downs? That's kind of what I want to see from Reilly. Just want to throw that out there, but Dallas Open also, by the way, huge success, massive success. So much better than the New York Open. The New York Open made no sense. During winter time, in a market that gets to go to the U.S. Open anyway. If you walk around the U.S. Open, half the people are from Long Island. So Long Island didn't need another tournament in the winter indoors. It was just depressing and no good and ridiculous. So I was happy to see full crowds in Dallas on the campus of SMU and a really awesome event. With that, we get to the Rotterdam final. So Felix comes in 0-8 in finals. Tsitsipas comes in 0-7 in ATP 500 finals. That was the big nugget, big stat that everyone was throwing around. But for Felix, it's a lot more important in my opinion. And I've been saying all year, ever since ATP Cup, he's different. He's just not the same guy. He's better in not just one area, but a multitude of areas. And you started to see, the first thing you started to see before the game got better technically, you started to see his confidence just get a little bit better. And you started to see him win big matches on stadium courts at majors. And he's gone now 3 majors in a row, quarterfinals or better. Take notice, folks. That's the first thing. Start of this year, the technical improvements were evident. Better transition game. Better shot tolerance, better forehand consistency, easier targets on that side, more on that later. Better court positioning. But then also, the ATP Cup was big. You knew it was going to be big in the moment, and it was big because, first of all, the Zverev win I thought was massive. He needed a win to put Canada through to the semifinal stage. Zverev was playing for absolutely nothing, and Felix wins that match. That's when I was like, whoa, I did not expect that. And that's when I knew that something was up with Felix here. Clinches the ATP final for Canada. Players all the time, they say, when you're wearing your flags and you have teammates, that's a different kind of pressure. That can be more pressure than any individual tournament. Felix beats a in-form RBA there, and you knew that was going to help him the next time he was in a final. Well, it did. Because he played a fantastic match here, and it wasn't competitive. He blew out Stefanos Tsitsipas in this Rotterdam final. But again, I caution everyone. It wasn't just the final. It wasn't just this week. Every single time Stefanos Tsitsipas has taken the court this year. Every single time Felix Auger-Aliassime has taken the court this year. He's been a different dude. He's been a better dude. He's been a top 10 to top 5, really a borderline top 5, because he is top 10 right now. And I'm trying not to be hyperbolic as hard as I can. But I said even when he lost to Daniil Medvedev in 5, I looked at the level of that match. I said after the match, that's a top 5 level. That looked like a match between 2 top 5 players. If Felix can keep this up, it's only 5 weeks into the season. So you got to pump the brakes. You got to keep watching for the consistency. If Felix keeps playing like this, he is going to be knocking on the door of the tier 1 players. I thought the key to the match was the offensive returning by Felix. The lack thereof from Stefanos. If you look statistically at the damage that was done off of return in both the return and the next shot. So we often talk about serve +1, what a key it is. If you hit offensive returns, you can also get those almost return +1. I'd rather call it maybe return and 1 because, or return 1-2. Whatever it is. If you look at those stats, if you isolate those opportunities, you see that Felix, 8 forced errors, 2 winners on return on his first 2 shots. Return +1. 8 forced errors, 2 winners. Tsitsipas on that same subset, 2 forced errors, 0 winners. Wasn't doing any damage, which is actually normal. It's kind of normal. What's abnormal is what Felix did. to win 10 points off of Tsitsipas's serve. And let me try to put this in perspective here by pulling up the stats. I mean, how many serve points in total real quick? $55. So to win nearly a fifth of return points off the prowess of the return itself is very, very impressive. A lot of these were second serve return points off of Tsitsipas's second serve. Some of them weren't, though. Some of them were first serve returns. I do have some examples here. 30-15. Tsitsipas hits this second serve kind of the body, maybe backhand body, but Felix is going to be able to run around this and hit a hard inside-out forehand, forces an error. In the second set, Tsitsipas hits this second serve cross court. Felix hits a clean winner on this return. Love 30. This was an important point. Set up triple break point. Once again, Felix broke in this opening return game, which he did in both the first and the second sets. And I'm showing you examples here. And there were more in these games, actually. Let's go to this Love 2 game. Different return. Backhand inside in. Forces another error. Same thing. Striking how many points played out that way. Again, mostly second serve points, and Tsitsipas only won 33% of his second serve points, and he hit a ton of second serves because he did not serve a good percentage. So, recipe for disaster. That's what created so many breaks of serve. Tsitsipas won 74% of his first serve points. You can hold serve like that. That's enough to hold serve. So, the reason Tsitsipas kept getting his serve broken, not enough first serves in, not protecting his second serve. What about Tsitsipas's second serve return? Well, Felix, almost always to the backhand, almost every time. He's just not as solid, not as stable on that backhand return, and he's not going to be offensive off of his backhand second serve return. He doesn't find the center of the strings as much. I find he often doesn't hit that quite as clean. He does not hit with the same depth. He hits the bigger and more central targets often. So he just doesn't generate that same offense. And he's playing neutral rallies off of his second serve return points, where Felix was literally able to play offensive tennis off of his second serve return points, which I thought just made a huge difference in this match. And statistically, I think it swung the match. The cheap point battle, which is something that I've highlighted with the Tsitsipas-Medvedev head-to-head on hard court. Again, it's another match where Steph loses this. FAA, 47% of his first serves unreturned. That's not a horrific number. It's not horrible, but Rotterdam plays pretty slow. So you do want to get more of those back. But more importantly, I'm just focused on who's getting the better of the dynamic. Tsitsipas, 32% first serves unreturned. Way down. Really low. That's a great job by Felix. I think Felix's return is underrated. I think it was awesome in this match. Again, he's extremely athletic out of his split step. His backswings are very short. He hits the ball very clean off that return, and I think it's one of his strengths. But this isn't happening to Tsitsipas against anyone. It's happening to him against the elite serve returners, and it's happening to him on hard court. But it's another match where this happens, and he's playing at a disadvantage when this happens every single time. So if you combine that, offensive returning by Felix and cheap point battle won by Felix, that's where you get the short-term advantage, where Tsitsipas won points 0 through 4, 39 to 28, And it was really on Tsitsipas's serve. On Tsitsipas's serve, Steph only won 23-17. Steph needs to dominate that category on serve 0 through 4 shots. That can't be that close or he's in trouble. So that was a big red flag. Cheap points, offensive returning by Felix. Those are the two formulas for that. Another thing was backhands. How many returns got to the backhand? Felix was able to get more returns to the Stefanos Tsitsipas backhand. These things all work hand in hand. But I also thought once the rally started, Felix did a better job on his backhand getting out of jail, getting out of the backhand trap, getting out of that corner with stronger cross-court backhands, better backhand neutralization, whether he's going cross-court, hitting that with precision, getting it out of the middle of the court and getting it away from Tsitsipas's forehand. I think Felix was able to do that. Don't think Tsitsipas was able to do that, especially when he went to the slice cross court. It almost never found the Felix backhand. FAA's footwork, his runaround speed is too good. And I didn't think Tsitsipas was at all able to keep FAA really honest and take his backhand down the line in this match, which is very important in my opinion. And I just thought there was a lot of backhand defense, insufficient, middle of the court. And Tsitsipas, once he was on defense, wasn't able to really get out of that position. Another interesting thing when it comes to the rally length stats is Felix didn't lose a single 5-8 rally on his serve, which tells you that once he got that kind of advantage in the rally that comes from the serve, that advantage didn't really diminish. Now, credit to Felix, it's just if you look at this subset of points, the stats really bode well for him. Obviously, he didn't make a single unforced error. He hit 4 winners on his 5th shot and forced 3 errors on his 5th shot, which is really, really good because he didn't make a single unforced error. 5th shot, think serve, return, 1 more shot, so it's your 3rd shot. You serve, you hit 1 shot, it's your 3rd shot. And FAA was really amazing on that 5th shot, which is kind of a Rafa signature because Nadal's forehand is so good at keeping control of the rally. You could see Tsitsipas FAA was keeping control of the rally and never relinquishing it, but it also shows you that Tsitsipas was not getting back in points from defensive positions, which he should be able to do. He's got good defense. He's an amazing athlete. His scrambling's really good. The reality is there was no defense in this match from Steph because FAA was pounding the backhand side and the neutralization efforts on Tsitsipas's backhand just was not good enough at all. And FAA dominated on serve as a result of this. Absolutely dominated. Let's face it, the points that Steph won on Felix's serve were unforced errors from Felix. Very few exceptions to that rule. Very few. I mean, he just could not neutralize at all. From the very start, from the return, from the backhand return to the backhand defense, and Felix's forehand completely controlled every rally. But Tsitsipas hit more backhands than forehands in this match. That's incredibly difficult for an opponent to do, and rarely is Steph going to win a match like that. In my opinion, it shows who's controlling the point. The serve return dynamic is a factor here. Who starts the point and how many returns are getting to the backhand. But I think the backhand cross-court defense and the backhand trading is a factor here. And I think in the future, one of the things Tsitsipas needs to make sure to do in this matchup is hit that backhand down the line to open up Felix's backhand a little bit better. You got to try to figure out a way to find more forehands. The last thing I want to talk about is the forehand reliability, because traditionally in this matchup, I think that would be a big edge for Tsitsipas, or it should be a big edge for Tsitsipas. Steph just has a forehand that sprays a little bit less. He controls it better. It's the ultimate precision shot. where FAA can make some head-scratching mistakes on that side. Well, at the end of the match, forehand unforced errors were in favor of Tsitsipas. Tsitsipas made 3, Felix made 7. So the question is, how could that dynamic matter more in the future? How could that dynamic become something that helps Tsitsipas win this match? Well, for one, I think more balls in play, more returns in play, more defense in play. The more you drag rallies out, the more that unforced error rate is going to show itself. So I think making more returns, achieving longer rallies to test the consistency a little bit more could have been things that worked in Tsitsipas's favor. But at the end of the day, Felix's offense was too much. And again, there was no neutralization from Tsitsipas. Another thing though on the forehand is FAA has just been playing better in this area as of late. The targets are better. I think the RPMs are up. The net clearance is up, in my opinion. I'd love to see some Hawkeye to confirm that. But this is classic Uncle Tony stuff. Racket acceleration, net clearance, high RPM to big targets. The weight of shot from Felix and the acceleration naturally that he is able to achieve on that forehand enables him to hit with a lot of topspin to big targets and still be damaging. Maybe, when it's time to finish, when it's time to step inside the court and take time away, you flatten out, you hit a little bit closer to the line. But I think on the rally ball forehands, Felix has been so much better, playing so much safer, and he's sustaining aggression on his forehand without making unforced errors, which is something he was not very good at. It used to be, just make him play some extra balls, you'll get the unforced errors, and it was not like that in this case. And it just goes to show you, they each made 8 unforced errors in total. So it was a clean match from both when you look at things. But the tidiness that Felix had on his serve, controlling with his forehand, was the key in this match to not let Tsitsipas back into it. Because all it may have taken was one loose game from Felix to give Tsitsipas a spark, and we know how a match can change. But Steph was never in this match. Again, Felix broke first game of each set. I thought it was a sluggish performance by Tsitsipas, and I'm not going to break down his performance in any sort of macro way. I've talked about the shortcomings, but the shortcomings in this match aren't new. Not getting enough. Losing the cheap point battle, something we've seen against elite serve and returners a lot. Not being able to defend the backhand well enough, something we've seen a lot. But none of these things are new. The one thing that I will just comment is the feet just didn't look quite as sharp as they usually do. And he said after the match that the legs were sluggish. Yeah, something was missing from an explosiveness standpoint in his legs, and I'm not sure why. But I think overall a positive result for Tsitsipas. He's never played too well on these courts. He came in with either a 500 record or a losing record. I forget which. I know he made the semifinal last year and he lost to Rublev. Tsitsipas he's never looked too comfortable in Rotterdam. So I think making a final, all the changes that have occurred, the new strings, the elbow surgery, the new coach, I think there's a lot of reason for optimism about the trajectory of Stefanos Tsitsipas' career at the moment, and I think he's setting up for a couple of really good months. But it pales in comparison to the optimism that's necessary for Felix Auger-Aliassime, who now has the monkey off of his back, who now has all of these new technical things working in his favor. Who knows? The floodgates could be open. And if he continues this level, he's easily a top 5 contender at Wimbledon and easily a top 5 contender in the top 25% of the quickest surfaces on tour, which, by the way, may now include the U.S. Open. There are the areas where you can poke holes in FAA's game is growing fewer and fewer. And when I first saw him and I saw someone with an unbelievable combination of athleticism and power, weaponry on the serve and the forehand, quickness, lightning quickness in the feet. He's now just refined the auxiliary stuff, the tactics, the nerve management, some details on the backhand. He's still returning great. I think he always has. This man is the player of the start of 2022 as far as improvement is concerned. I know he started at 11, he was 11 in the world, so I know that's hard to say, but he appears to be the guy who's making a jump here. All right, that is all. Monday Match Analysis is available on all podcast platforms. I like to quickly or occasionally throw out a reminder of that. But hope you enjoyed this one. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time.